In Chapter 6 of the Sounds of Nightmares podcast, Noon visits the workshop, a place of familiar outfits and decidedly unfamiliar terrors. It is the shortest and simplest of all her dreams, taking place in only one small room, but I think that belies its true significance in the grand scheme of things. Let's just say I don't think it's a coincidence that this is Noon's last dream before she crosses over the threshold for good, and believe it may actually be the most important in helping us understand the world of Nowhere and predict what might happen in Little Nightmares 3. Needless to say, this video will contain spoilers for the podcast as well as the Little Nightmares games, so if you have not yet experienced these for yourself, then I would strongly recommend doing that first. For everyone else, let's start with a brief overview of the dream to make sure we're on the same page. After drifting off to sleep and passing over the dark threshold once more, Noon finds herself in a musty, cluttered room with mountains of patterned fabrics piled against the walls and a long wooden table in the center that is covered with scraps and tools. Enchanting, sad music fills the air along with a sweet scent of candy apples, though neither one has a clear source, and a machine can be heard whirring from behind a closed door. I'm calling this the workshop, but to be very clear, that is just a placeholder name, since it doesn't have an official one yet. As Noon gets her bearings and looks around, she sees mannequins standing about the room wearing various adult-sized outfits, and finds a wooden chest at the foot of the table filled with smaller outfits suitable for children, including a yellow raincoat. She then notices a one-armed puppet lying on the table, a pair of rusty shears pinning it down, and when she leans in to get a closer look, it suddenly springs to life and grabs her by the leg. Struggling to escape its grasp, she spies a glass bottle close by and smashes it into the puppet's head, causing it to lie still, and also causing the music to abruptly stop. Noon quickly hides in the wooden chest, burying herself under the outfits piled within and pulling the lid shut, and not a moment too soon, for a woman appears in the doorway. Peeking out through the keyhole, Noon describes this being as a new kind of mannequin, wearing a beautiful dress and possessing features so perfect that Noon can't tell whether they're real or fake. The perfect lady. Upon seeing the puppet and broken bottle on the table, she steps forward to open the chest and begins to pull outfits from it, repairing them one by one on the table. Eventually, there are none left for Noon to hide under. In desperation, she pulls the lid shut once more, holding it as tight as she can, and just as she feels it start to be pulled open, Otto's dream machine kicks in and Noon reaches the hypnagogic threshold. The workshop disappears and only dark mist remains. Of all the interesting features in this dream, I think the most notable one, besides the lady herself, is her collection of outfits. Noon goes out of her way to describe most of them in detail, and of these, the vast majority have been seen before in the Little Nightmares world. The yellow raincoat belongs to Six and the braid girl from Very Little Nightmares. The tan trench coat belongs to Mono. The doctor's coat belongs to the doctor. The purple suit and red bow tie belong to the carnival ringleader. The gunny sack with one slit belongs to the hunter or possibly the one-armed ghost child, and the black velvet cloak might belong to the Lady of the Maw. This one is a bit of a stretch, as her kimono doesn't look especially velvety to me and is definitely brown, but if the workshop lighting was quite dim, then it's possible Noon could have mistaken dark brown for black. Alternatively, this is an outfit we've never seen before, which also happens to be the case for two others. A wedding dress splashed with dark stains, and a pink tutu, both of which I will be looking for very carefully in Little Nightmares 3. It just can't be a coincidence or simply an Easter egg that we are seeing bits and pieces from all over the Little Nightmares world here in this very room, and I'll get to the full ramifications of this in a minute, but first I want to address the most important outfit of all, the yellow raincoat. Much has been made of the raincoat's appearance here, and rightly so, as Otto has an immediate reaction to Noon describing it.
And lifted the lid to see it stuffed with smaller outfits, and a yellow raincoat.
Yellow? Was anyone else around?
The assumption I think we're intended to make is that the raincoat must have some connection to Cece, Otto's sister who crossed into Nowhere many years before. And if that's true, it could mean that Six is Cece or that the braid girl is Cece. Personally, however, and maybe this is a controversial take, I feel hesitant about trying to connect every single detail in the Little Nightmares series back to Six. Her role in the series thus far has, of course, been fundamental, and she could very well show up in Little Nightmares 3 for all we know, but I still think this world is a lot bigger than just her. So keeping that in mind, what if the yellow raincoat is more than just an icon for Six? Something greater, a tool for shaping and manipulating the world of Nowhere in specific ways, with Six having been specially chosen to bear it. Crucially, Otto never says why the raincoat is significant to him. It could be that Cece had one just like it, or maybe she just mentioned seeing it in one of her dreams like she mentioned the ferryman. Perhaps every single child who visits Nowhere will come across this object at some point in a kind of esoteric initiation. Of course, that's just speculation at this point, but there have been subtle hints that the yellow raincoat is more than just a piece of clothing Six conveniently finds right when she needs it. After putting it on in the Pale City, the screen flashes just as it does when she feeds in Little Nightmares, like an eye blinking. The eyes of Nowhere are watching closely and take special notice when this event occurs. I'm wondering if maybe the raincoat functions as a catalyst object of sorts, marking Six for her place in the cycles and sealing Mono's fate as well. So that about covers the raincoat's physical appearance at the workshop, but there's another side to this discussion as well. When Noon mentions the outfit, we can just barely make out Six's theme playing faintly in the background for a few seconds.
And a yellow raincoat.
Yellow? Was anyone else around?
Specifically, it sounds like a variation of the theme as it appears in the track Togetherness 2 from Little Nightmares 2. Clearly, we're supposed to connect the outfit to Six, and the song is an interesting inclusion since it actually showed up earlier in the podcast, in Chapter 3, when Noon enters the shopping mall's toy store and finds the section with dolls.
The shop owner wasn't present, so I grabbed one and began playing on the carpet. But it didn't take long for me to go bored.
Based on these details, you could infer that Noon is Six and is getting a glimpse into her own future when she finds the raincoat. And maybe that's true. But I think there's something else going on here, something the podcast is trying to tell us, so before jumping straight to that conclusion, let's take a closer look at Six's theme itself. Named for a set of 2 tracks in the first Little Nightmares game, Six's theme can also be heard throughout Little Nightmares 2, where it is arguably even more important since it plays directly from her music box. The core melody is quite simple, consisting of a short, repeating motif of 3 descending notes, almost as if the tune is trying to sink lower and lower. To make sense of this distinct pattern and explain why someone other than Six might know it, we must answer one simple question. What is the ferryman trying to get Noon to do? And by extension, all other children as well.
Sink into these tideless waters.
His entire purpose is to draw children through the boundary between worlds, convincing them that this is where they belong, ultimately guiding them over the threshold to join the blur of countless faces seen within its frame. Just like the yellow raincoat, perhaps this song is not unique to Six, but is actually universal. The Song of Nowhere, or Sinking Song if you will, an eerie tune that worms its way into each child's subconscious as they spend time there, conditioning them, hypnotizing them to sink and willingly give themselves to this dark world. Just one of the many ways that Nowhere snares them in its web. Continuing this thread further, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Lady of the Maw can be heard humming a very similar tune. You'll notice that the interval between the second and third note is quite a bit bigger than in Six's theme, and there's notably less variation overall, but the 2 songs nevertheless share the same foundation. And nowhere is this more clearly shown than in A Room with a View, a track from Secrets of the Maw that combines the music box and melancholy whimsy of Six's theme with the specific 3-note pattern of the lady. Something very interesting happens about halfway through. We hear the soft humming of children give way to the deeper, more mature tones of the lady. I believe this is all just one song, and its variations represent different stages of a child's journey in nowhere. For children who have newly crossed into the realm or are in the process of crossing, it sounds light, playful even, inviting them to venture deeper into the darkness beyond. But for the lady, it has reached maturity, the final stage. As a child, she ascended, claiming the spoils of nowhere for herself. There are no more ups or downs or variations left on her journey, only an end, and so there is nothing left of the tune but the same 3 notes repeating over and over and over again until that fateful day arrives. And on that note, I think it's about time we return to the original focus of this video, the outfits and the one who makes them. By this point you've probably guessed where my theory is headed, but to put it simply, I think that the perfect lady is pulling the strings all across nowhere. The outfits she crafts here in the workshop are simply tools that she uses to shape and manipulate the dreams that make up this world, and we even see them in action, for at the time Noon visits the place, the lady is clearly manipulating the carnival dream from chapter 4. The evidence is all there. The enchanting, sad music playing sounds pretty fitting for a carnival, the smell of candy apples hangs in the air, the purple suit is present on a mannequin, and the puppet on the table is even wearing an outfit that matches those of the carnival audience. Also, when Noon sees the pair of large rusty shears stuck through its torso, she remarks that she could almost feel the blades herself as though they were inside some kind of voodoo doll. What happens in this room to these puppets with these clothes affects both residents and visitors all over the realm. No child is truly free, for they are all hanging by strings, pulled by the one who watches from above, the Puppetmaster, as I've decided to call her. While she may indeed be a keeper like the Lady of the Maw or the Thin Man, it is also possible that she is something different. Not a child who ascended, but an ancient entity like the ferryman who truly belongs in this twisted world and is deeply involved with the web that Noon catches a glimpse of in Chapter 2. But what does any of this have to do with Little Nightmares 3? Well, we know the game is set in a strange place called the Spiral, and the funny thing about spirals is they have a center. A spot where every segment of the shape converges into one point. Perhaps the workshop is at the center of this spiral, outside of time, even by nowhere standards, and from this vantage point the Puppetmaster reaches out, manipulating every timeline simultaneously, guiding the cycles with a delicate hand. After each one is successfully renewed, she repairs the corresponding outfits on her craft table, carefully placing them into the world to be found once more by those fated to receive them. The spiral is undoubtedly filled with all manner of horrors that Lo and Alone will have to face and overcome, but of all these, I think it is the Puppetmaster they should fear most. For if they are to actually escape nowhere, they must first find a way to rip free of her strings. And with that, we've come to the end of this video, which I've been working on for quite a while now, and I'm very excited to finally be sharing with you all. I know there's quite a bit of speculation here, and some of these ideas depart substantially from established fan theories in the community, but I hope at the very least I've given you something new to think about. As with all my theories, I'm not trying to suggest that this is the only or best explanation for the mysteries of Little Nightmares, but rather trying to bring new ideas and perspectives to the table as our collective understanding continues to evolve. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like as it helps the channel a lot, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell if you'd like to see more Little Nightmares theories as soon as they're posted. Hit the comments section below with any of your own questions or observations, and I hope to see you in the next one.